Like they pretend to be actual journalists, but they're not. What we saw was actual journalism. And honestly, the only time that Donald Trump seems to be challenged is when there is a black woman on the other side, whether we're talking about Letitia James, or we're talking about Fani Willis, or we're talking about the vice president who will become the president, or we're talking about those black women journalists such as Rachel that decided that they were going to say, no, sir, and follow up and try to get answers.
Today, we're getting into a heated political battle brewing in Texas. Our very own Representative Jasmine Crockett is under fire from Republicans. The reason? She's standing up for what she believes is right, and they're not having it. But here's the thing, when you're making waves and challenging the status quo, you're bound to ruffle some feathers. So let's break down what's going on and why the opposition is so scared of her. After a shocking assassination attempt, the political climate has heated up, especially in Texas. Representative Jasmine Crockett, a Democratic lawmaker from Texas, is now facing some serious backlash from Republicans. Why? Because she's supporting a bill that has them all riled up. Representative Crockett is a co-sponsor of a bill called the Disgraced Former Protectees Act. This bill is straightforward. It would remove Secret Service protection from anyone convicted of a state or federal crime who is sentenced to at least a year in prison. It's aimed at making sure that taxpayers aren't footing the bill to protect people who have clearly broken the law. But not everyone is happy about this. In fact, 27 Texas lawmakers and nominees have sent a letter directly to Representative Crockett. In the letter, they said that they believe current and former presidents must always be protected no matter what. They went so far as to demand her resignation, claiming that by supporting this bill, she has forfeited any moral authority to represent Texas. Let's break that down. These Republicans are essentially saying that even if someone, like a former president, is convicted of a serious crime and is sentenced to prison, they still deserve to have taxpayer-funded protection. But does that make sense? Shouldn't the focus be on justice and accountability? Now let's take a moment to hear from Representative Jasmine Crockett herself. In a recent interview on MSNBC, she didn't hold back when discussing how Trump's history shows who he really is.
You know, what is so frustrating is that these are the guys that their answer to everything is DEI, and they are basically trying to minimize black folk and saying the only types of jobs that we can have are the jobs, say, that someone who's immigrating from somewhere else and coming to our country, which for the most part, these are entry-level jobs. Those are the only jobs we're qualified for, right? Like, you can't be the GOAT when it comes to the Olympics. You can't be me and sit in Congress. And the reality is that these are people that are not qualified for the positions in which they're running for. And it is a threat when you are a Donald Trump who just happens to be born with a silver spoon in his mouth, who never worked for anything a day in his life. And when he did start working, it was always trying to perpetrate a fraud. That's what we saw him do with his businesses, whether we're talking about real estate or if we're talking about his fake universities. It's always been a fraud. And right now he's trying to perpetrate a fraud on the American people, not once, but for a second time. And we rejected it the second time. And I'm looking forward to him being rejected again when a black woman shows him that her black job, her next black job, is being the president of the United States.
As you just heard, Crockett isn't afraid to call out Trump's actions, and that's precisely why she's facing so much backlash. She's putting the truth out there, and it's making some people very uncomfortable. Representative Crockett is standing strong in her beliefs. She represents part of Dallas and the surrounding area, and she's known for being a fierce advocate for what she believes is right. Her support of this bill shows that she's not afraid to take a stand, even when it's unpopular with the other side. In fact, it's clear that the reason they're coming after her so hard is because they fear her impact. They know that she's a powerful voice for change, and that's something they can't control. It's likely that Representative Crockett is focusing on the bigger picture rather than getting caught up in the noise of these demands for her resignation. As for the bill itself, it was referred to a House committee back in April, but it hasn't moved forward yet. This is often the case with legislation that challenges the status quo. There's always resistance. The primary sponsor of the bill is Representative Bennie Thompson of Mississippi, another Democrat who sees the importance of this issue. It's important to remember that this bill isn't about targeting anyone unfairly. It's about ensuring that people who have been found guilty of serious crimes are held accountable without extra privileges like Secret Service protection. It's about fairness and using taxpayer money responsibly. The pushback from Republicans seems to be more about protecting their own interests than about protecting the public. By calling for Representative Crockett to resign, they're trying to silence a voice that's challenging the old way of doing things. But Crockett isn't backing down, and neither should the people who support justice and fairness. The fact that they are going to such lengths to try and remove her from her position is a testament to how much they fear her influence. In the end, this situation is a clear example of how politics can get messy, especially when someone like Representative Jasmine Crockett steps up to make a change. She's showing courage by supporting this bill, and it's a reminder that sometimes doing the right thing isn't always the most popular choice. Crockett should continue doing exactly what she's doing. The fact that she's facing this much opposition only proves that she's on the right path. She's challenging the powers that be, and that's exactly what they're afraid of. They fear her because she represents a new kind of leadership, one that isn't afraid to shake things up and stand up for what's right. The conversation around this bill and the reaction from Texas Republicans also highlights a bigger issue. What kind of country do we want to be? Do we want to protect people who have broken the law, or do we want to make sure that justice is served no matter who you are? Representative Crockett is on the side of justice. She's standing up for what she believes in, and even though the Republicans are pushing back hard, she's not giving up. This is the kind of leadership that's needed in times like these, where the lines between right and wrong can get blurred by politics. As we wait to see what happens with this bill, one thing is clear: Representative Jasmine Crockett isn't going anywhere. She's here to fight for what's right, and she's not going to be pushed out by those who are more interested in protecting the powerful than in standing up for justice.
What he's going to learn is that Black women, one thing we are very good at is the clapback. And we know how to stand on business, and I think that that's what we're going to see. But one of the important points that I do want to make about NABJ and the fact that Donald Trump had to sit down for an actual interview, for actual journalism, this is what is so threatening for him. This is why in Project 2025, they don't want independent journalism, which is one of those things that we value in a democracy, is the freedom of press. And it's something that they are trying to make sure that we can turn back the hands of time on. This is why he loves a person like Putin, because Putin controls the propaganda. And that's what he's gotten out of Fox News. I thought that Fox News would decide that they would go back and want to do the right thing after they got sued for millions and had to pay up. But listen, so long as people are tuning in, they're making that money back again, and they continue to pretend to be, I call them faux news, right? Like they pretend to be actual journalists, but they're not. What we saw was actual journalism. And honestly, the only time that Donald Trump seems to be challenged is when there is a Black woman on the other side, whether we're talking about Letitia James, or we're talking about Fonnie Willis, or we're talking about the vice president who will become the president, or we're talking about those Black women journalists such as Rachel that decided that they were going to say, no, sir, and follow up and try to get answers. It's what we actually needed in the last debate. And if he does decide that he is going to come out from his scary little corner and debate the vice president, I do hope whoever ends up being the moderators, that they learn a thing or two and go back to what journalism looks like, and they hold his feet to the fire.
So there you have it. Representative Jasmine Crockett is out here shaking things up, and the pushback she's facing only proves that she's on the right track. The fact that they're calling for her resignation shows just how much they fear her influence. But let's be real. Jasmine Crockett isn't backing down, and neither should we. If you're all about standing up for justice and holding people accountable, then you're on the same page as she is. Thanks for watching, and if you're as inspired by Jasmine's fight as I am, be sure to like, comment, and subscribe for more updates on this and other stories that matter. Stay tuned, stay informed, and keep supporting those who stand for what's right.